and foremost, one, thank you so much for taking the time out.
Oh, come on, man.
Dude, I got into this industry. I'm newer. I've been a fan of music for a long time, dance music, house music, but I've really become more of a student of the game, quote unquote. I was like 13 in Italy and I was on a swim scholarship as a kid, and I tell this story, and the people who follow the page are probably like sick of hearing this probably at this point, but like my team was very international, and we got stopped by the cops because we jumped the turnstiles at the metro station.
Got it. Okay.
The cops were like, "Who are you? Like, let me see some IDs." My buddy's older than me. He's from Bulgaria, and like, you know, the scene in Europe was really big, and has always been very big. And he's like, "I don't have ID. My name's John Digweed." And I'm like, "Who's John Digweed?" And I'm like 13, right? So I'm like, "Ray, that's not your name. Like, you're not John Digweed." And I'm just like super innocent and naive. And then it kind of evolved from there. But as I get to interview the people like Hernan Catano in different facets of this underground music, right? You have house, you have progressive, but each one has their own legends and has their own people who have been here in the beginning. You're somebody that I've really wanted to speak to for a multitude of reasons, so thank you for taking the time out.
Oh, thank you as well.
It really means a lot. And one of the aspects of your career that I'm really interested in is the S-Men crew. All of you coming together, you, Roger Sanchez, DJ Sneak, in the 90s, coming together and forming this group, right? 6 turntables you guys performed live with at the time?
So S-Men was created as an offshoot to what we had prior was the Mongoloids. And the Mongoloids was an idea that myself and Armand Van Helden had to kind of create camaraderie amongst like-minded individuals and friends. And what we mimicked, our blueprint was like the Wu-Tang. We wanted to be the Wu-Tang of house. So it was myself, Armand, Van Helden, Basement Jaxx, Sneak, Roger, Daft Punk, all of us together, because we all hung out all the time. We would remix each other. You know, I did the vocals for Where's Your Head At, Basement Jaxx. A lot of people might not know that. So we all did things together. We all worked together and remixed each other, or did added productions on each other's work, because we're always around each other. And we created this unity, this band of brothers, and we called it the Mongoloids. And then we decided to, you know, Roger was like, "Yo, I want to do the Invincible Scratch Pickles concept, where we get 6 turntables and I have my sampler, my W30, and we bring that to house music. Because, you know, you had, you know, the Scratch Pickles and all the stuff in hip hop, and, you know, in the DMC championships and all the competitions of turntablism, but you didn't have that in house music. So we decided to do that. And
so was this like kind of the first time? I know people in production had been sampling, right?
Yeah.
But was this kind of like the first time where people were sampling, like with a sampler, like live at this point?
I think so, because I brought my W30 on stage, and as far as DJs go, yes, obviously Orbital and obviously all these live acts were doing it, but we weren't necessarily live. We were 3 DJs coming together. I was younger, so a lot of people don't understand. Even though I'm lumped in, I'm the last of the Mohicans, or the last one to come through with the Armand and Kenny and Louie and Todd. But I'm 9 years younger than Armand. I'm like 10 to 15 to almost 20 years younger than all my other peers. So I have a different perspective. So when people hear their story, like Armand's story or Todd, they're like, "Oh, maybe Junior doesn't have anything to add to it," because they think I'm from that same, even though I'm from that same time frame, I'm still a little younger than them. So I have a different perspective. So it's interesting when I'm honored to get put into that category of people, because I was the last one to kind of break through, where, you know, the labels were still around, Strictly Rhythm and Nervous, and I would go to the offices and I would get promos, you know. But anyway, to go back to the S-Men, yeah, we were the first ones to take 6 turntable and bring that turntablism, let's say, adding a sampler, adding some shorter show. And our first show was 1997 Tribal Gathering. We opened up for Kraftwerk.
That's right.
And it was nuts.
What was that like?
Well, for me, it was my first international show, like really big show. It was one of those moments that you're like, okay, if this ends now, I'm good, I'm happy.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like Kraftwerk, I mean, in Detroit, they were bumping, from what Eddie told me, on the, like, they were bumping on the block.
Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere.
But not just Detroit. I mean, even take that away. Take techno away.
Yeah.
Go to the mid to late '70s, the Bronx, early hip hop, Planet Rock, Arthur Baker. They sampled Trans Eros Express to create Planet Rock. We wouldn't have Planet Rock without Kraftwerk. So Kraftwerk is the blueprint for a lot of electronic music today, especially Detroit techno. And techno is from Detroit. It is black music. But there were things that influenced what techno became, and Kraftwerk is one of them, for sure. And Kraftwerk started off as a prog rock band, like a progressive rock band. They weren't even into electronics, so their first records are straight up rock records. But it was crazy. Remember, at that time I had a Sony Handyman cam or something. It was like a small camcorder, and I remember recording like their rehearsal. Because we opened, so they had their own stage, which was curtained off, but you couldn't even go there. And then I snuck in and I started recording and stuff. And then somebody comes and just grabs my camcorder and just doesn't say anything to me, just takes out the tape and just closes and gives me back my camcorder and walks away. I was like, oh, okay. I was kind of pissed off, but I was like, somebody told me after, you can't record Kraftwerk. I was like, oh, fine. Anyway, long story short, we did the show. It was awesome. I get back home after the tour. It could be weeks later. I don't know what it was. But I get a package in the mail. And I open it up, and it's a Kraftwerk box set, like a 6-box set LP, a T-shirt, like a little letter, thank you for opening for us and all that. And then my cassette came back that was in the camcorder, and I popped it in. It was all demagnetized. It was just like all white noise and stuff. I was like, fuck, that's pretty awesome. And then I'm like, how did they get my address? How did they know this? Yeah. It was really cool. That was like a memory I'll never forget.
Wow, sounds like such a special moment.
Yeah.
Like being able to open for them, such an iconic influence in electronic music.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they just took my shit. I was like, that was their way of saying maybe sorry, or like it's all good, or don't do that again. Like, we know where you live, like, or something. So yeah, it was super wild, man.
Wow, that's amazing. So many messages on so many different levels, but such a unique experience that many people probably wonder about, like, because they touch so many aspects of electronic music. I want to kind of segue into what you said, just like a little tangent, about how you're the last of the Mohegans, right? What is that perspective, like, what is your perspective that might be different from some of the others that might be Louis? And I don't want to speak for any of them, but you come in younger and fresh. Like, I did a piece of content, and I saw you, 1999, opening with Daft Punk, and you're there, you're a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the baby, which I realize now in retrospect, like when I thought about me hanging out with Armand. So I'm 9 years younger than him. I'm 46 now, so he must, he's, in his 50s, right? And I was like, okay, I was like 16 or whatever, and I'm like, I guess I was like his muse, and he was like my older brother. So I realize now what that dynamic was like. I was inspiring him while he was inspiring me, but me being younger and wilder, and him being a little bit older, and my perspective, my different perspective was that I was going out to places that a lot of these guys weren't. Like, Todd wasn't going to raves, Louis wasn't going to raves, or they were maybe playing at some, but I don't think they were. They were more, they were touring differently. Like, they were in Italy, they were going playing Cabo Padariso or Ministry of Sound, but I was out going to these. I was a kid going out to these young ass raves, and this is when it was still like segregated. Meaning you wouldn't really hear a lot of house music at raves, or you wouldn't hear a lot of techno or drum and bass or other things at house music, let's say, venues. But there was a cross-pollinating moment I'd never forget. I was at NASA, which is on Hubert Street at the Shelter in New York City, and Soul Slinger was playing. And he was playing Kerry Chandler, She's Gaga, She's Crazy or something, off his Madhouse imprint. And I remember being in the dance floor going, oh shit, they're playing a proper Newark, New Jersey, Zanzibar type house music in this rave venue that, Moby was gonna come on after, let's say. And then I went to Sound Factory Bar, not Sound Factory, Sound Factory Bar, and Louis was playing. And I heard him play Dave Clark's remix of In the Dark We Live from Felix the House Cat. So I was like, okay, I get it. It's okay. If Louis can play this and Soul Singer can play Kerry Chandler, I see that cross-pollination happening within the cultures. And that inspired me, because Armand and I, we would just play techno records and pitch it down in a house set, because the grooves are nasty. So we didn't have any rules or any boundaries. That's why people like Armand made Witch Doctor, or he made Flowers, or somebody like Green Velvet, Cashmere did Percolator, or he did Brighter Days, or Little Louis did Blackout, or he did, Club Lonely, a vocal. We just wanted to make records and not have any like barriers. If I woke up one day and wanted to make a more leaning techno sounding record because I'm inspired by Carl Craig, then that's what I'm gonna do. We didn't have that one. I guess me being younger, my mind is a little bit more broader than I would say the older cats that were kind of just on one lane, Do
you feel like that gave you the permission, seeing those influences and crossovers and cross-pollination, to be like, oh, this is, like you're saying, it's totally cool, but it sounds like for some of the others, they may have been so focused in their lane, they might not have seen that?
Yeah, I think it was because I was younger. I mean, if I'm, 10 to 15 years, so almost 20 years younger than some people, it makes sense now to me that I had a different perspective. And me being the youngest of 6, and me understanding people that I admired and understood how they made music, or go, oh wow, like Prince, for example, everything was influence. He did rock, punk, soul, but he used drum machines, Lindrum. Same thing with Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. Like, it was all him and computers, and even though it was very industrial, but there was all this synthesized and sampling going on. So I kind of understood all that, going, okay, it doesn't have to be one-dimensional. We can just, it's all electronic music per se. We're using all the electronic equipment and synthesizers and this and that. It's not like the disco days where everything was organic and strings and orchestras and live. So it is coming from an electronic standpoint, and it's just how we present it and how we output it. Like, for example, people think Nine Inch Nails was a band, but no, it's Trent Reznor, one guy in a computer, and the perception he gave to people was being on stage and had people around him, so you thought it was a band, It's
fooling everybody.
Absolutely, it was just him and some computers.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So I'm learning stuff in the moment as well. It sounds like we were able to like getting outside of like the proverbial box that sometimes people put their ideas in.
Yeah, put themselves in. Because you're too scared or afraid to kind of like be creative. I mean, I don't know how else to be. I've always been, I mean, just recently I have a vocal record with Rowetta on Circus, which is Yusuf's label. But then I have a record on Planet E, which is called Craig's label, which is is way different than anything else I've done recently. It's an opus, very instrumental, very Jaguar, like sort of the Jaguar type vibe. And then I have a full album coming out on Defected soon that's nothing but vocals. So, I just want to do quality work, and I want to paint without being told what color to paint with,
I see that in a lot of artists where they want to just go experiment in different areas, and there's nothing wrong with releasing a record on a techno label, and then you want to go do progressive and house.
It's all part of my DNA. I'm not doing anything out of character. It's not like I'm out here making reggae and like just like, hey, big up them right now. Like, I'm not like, it's not out of like, I'm not doing things that's so out of my musical DNA that it's just like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm also not a culture vulture. I'm not somebody that one day wants to make reggae, and next day I'm making country music. And there is no genre hopping. I'm staying within a family tree of music: techno, house, a little bit of tech house. Techno is soulful. It's black music from Detroit. Inner City, Good Life is a vocal record, but it's techno. So I'm staying within my realms. I'm not like suddenly making some crazy shit that doesn't compute with me, Or I'm not jumping on a bandwagon making 155 BPM records with R&B samples. I'm doing what I do because I know I can do it well, and I'm doing it from the heart, and that's it. And you can't spell art without heart, so.
And that's the theme that continues to come through no matter who I interview. It's like where the intention comes from and the passion, and it being true, like true to yourself and not, like you're saying, jumping on trends.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something that we've been chatting about over text, which is creativity and the process in which it's changing now because of all these different platforms, whether it be social media, whether it be AI, whether it be another digital platform that's going to show up tomorrow. As an artist yourself, what does that look like for you, and how does that impact your creative process moving forward?
You know, it's really interesting you bring that up, because I think that's an evolving question. It's a tough question. Technology is exponentially growing so fast. I mean, look at all that we've seen and had, and since let's just touch on. We can go back to when MP3 first started, or Napster, or LimeWire, or let's go to the first iPhone, which wasn't that long ago. So right now, it's crazy to see how technology has evolved, but how it's influenced it, how it's changed and influenced art. Whether you're a graphic designer, whether you're a painter, whether you're, an actor or a voiceover actor, whether you're a musician making music. I mean, it's impacted big time. It's changing. When I was growing up, in order to make a record, you had to either invest in yourself, rent studio time, or buy gear, which wasn't cheap. So buying a sampler wasn't cheap. And then all these plugins you have now, a compressor, a reverb, all these things that we have inside of one universe, a computer, you had to go buy them, these inanimate objects, separately, and they were rack mount. Here's just a reverb.
Rack, right?
Or here's a reverb, and here's a compressor, and here's a echo. Like you had to acquire these things and build your arsenal and put in the time and learn it and put in your 10,000 hours and work. There were no tutorials. And I'm not saying that back then was better. No, but you had to do these things. If you loved or you wanted to do this, you had to put in the work, because there was no shortcuts. There was nothing else but you and these machines, and you got to go and do it. I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for technology for helping us record vocals faster, or track, or editing. People used to cut to 24, 2-inch tape and cut tape and put it together and splice it. Obviously, those are there's a lot of more convenience with technology, but there's also a lot more abundance of people making music that's not that good, because it's easier.
It's cheap.
And it's cheaper, and then creativity dies. So it's I think it's reciprocal. Everything goes in cycles, but now with the advance of AI, where you have, you at a press of a button, you used to have sample packs, but now you can have a press of a button, make me a techno song that sounds like Carl Craig, mixed with Carl Cox, mixed with, Tchaikovsky, and then something pops out. They spit this thing out. I'm not saying it's good or bad. But we're at that point where it's becoming so easy, and while it gets easier, music gets devalued, because nobody retains the information enough to care, because they make it so fast. Anything fast, like fast food, you consume and you eat it, you don't care. You're not eating a fast food burger and going, oh my God, this is amazing. You're eating it, it's your fuel, and you're gone. So music is becoming the same way. It's just fast consumption. You're not making it with heart and soul. You're just making it for a purpose, a piece of content. I need it for my drop. I need it. I need this for everything else in my life except for feeding my soul. And that's what's happening, and I get it. So I think there's going to be a war there's going to be the Skynet war of like people that want to make music, and because they want to really contribute art to the world and give moments to people that they can hold on to. Like music for me growing up with moments. I could say Portishead, and it'll bring me back to like winter of 1994, driving my boy Saab, and that whole album meant something to me. Now you can't say that, because kids don't even know records. They know 30 seconds of a record because they need it for TikTok content. but the song doesn't matter to them. It doesn't put them in a place. I think this is me looking out, and also having kids. I have 3 kids. One is in college, another one's, a teenager's 13. I see what they're doing. And luckily they're my kids, so they grew up a little bit differently. They do love music, and they do love art, and they do love technology, but they can partition and they see the difference. But it's really wild to see what's happening to art, where it's becoming less and less valued, Where it's gonna go from here, I don't know. I'm not Nostradamus. I have no idea. I know that it can go bad. Like any technology can be used for bad, right? So AI, as amazing as it is, it's very dangerous. You put that shit in the wrong hands, something can happen. Same thing with art. You put the ease of convenience in somebody's fingertips, they're just gonna spit out, shit that really doesn't mean anything, So it's a weird time, but it's also a fascinating time because we gotta learn how to navigate that, fight that, or use that. I think AI needs that. For artists in every level, I think it should be regulated. It's dangerous for AI to mimic people or your likeness or your voice.
Yeah, because you're not getting compensated.
Well, not even compensation. You can, you can frame somebody for doing a murder or robbing a bank or mom.
$5 million.
So there needs to be some sort of regulation. I have a friend of mine who does voiceover. He does a character, Bob's Burgers. And that's why SAG, they went on strike. These media companies wanted to take AI and say you pass away, use your likeness or your voice and continue you on the show. Or resurrect shows, like let's bring up, different strokes again and and have, these characters live again, I think that's up to the estates. I think now people should I think their likeness and their voice is their own intellectual property, their IP. We need to figure out how to protect that so that people can't take that. How do you just take me without my authorization? How are you just gonna take, the whole thing with the Grammys where somebody made a song with AI Drake and AI this, and they're like, oh, and then they realize, oh no, this is crazy. You can't, this is just wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Stealing.
Yeah, it's stealing. You can't just steal somebody's likeness and put it on a song and then put it on Spotify or all these streaming platforms and make money off of it.
People, like you're saying, put in their 10,000 hours. I was a swimmer growing up. I put in my 10,000 hours and I got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really replicate physical activity because we haven't gotten there to that.
Yeah.
But some of the arts are the first ones to see the switch be turned on for them. And people spend their lives building their careers. This technology can essentially rob them. Not rob them, but it can take from them.
Absolutely. I think art's still important, and I think we should preserve it. We need to protect it, because if we don't protect it, we're going to lose it. And if we lose it, it's we don't have the history. If we don't protect books, or if we don't protect, paintings, or songs or song public, we're gonna lose all these amazing things in the future where people might not have it. I look at movies like Ready Player One, and everyone's just living in this virtual world of gaming, or Idiocracy. That movie is mimicking what's going on right now in the world. It's hilarious. So we need to protect our art and our culture. We have to. It's because we'll lose it. I was watching this podcast, a young kid, super smart kid. I forgot his name, but he was interviewing. He interviews all these different people. It could be Simon Cowell, this and that. He's like, I must have heard the Lizzo song 1,000,000 times, but I only know the first 30 seconds. He was super honest. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I must have heard it a couple 100,000 times, the full song, and I don't remember it. Because how they're retaining information is for a purpose, just for that TikTok moment, that content. It's interesting, what's happening. But I think it's part of evolving. And I think we can't stop technology. We can't stop what's happening, and we shouldn't, because we need to evolve. We're at this point in human evolution because we've evolved, but we need to put the brakes on some things or control some things. We can't just let things run wild, because then it becomes a Ray Kurzweil situation, singularity, where we need to start putting technology in ourselves in order to keep up with the computers that are becoming way smarter than us.
I agree. And this also makes me think of back in the day when you're coming up, there wasn't this like, I'm gonna send emails to this producer over here, like maybe get my stuff on the radio show, which is kind of now what it is from my understanding. But now it's gone to the TikTok part, right? Where it's like, oh, this song blew up on TikTok. This person has a set during Miami Music Week because it's gonna make money at this venue. Like, I'm starting to notice that. My question is, how do you protect that? And I don't want to call it the old guard, but right, like you came up, other people like you came up in a way where like you had to put in your time, earn your street cred, and you had to align yourself, not just align yourself with the right people, the people who were in front of you, came before you, had to see something in you to be like, come with me. Like, how do you protect that moving forward?
I think those days are just, it's just a different way of, so for me to say, this is how I did it, and it was the right way for me to do it at that time. It was the only way to do it. I didn't have the options of what a lot of people have today, whether it be a coach production or this or a tutorial or an AI or me, TikTok. I mean, there's so many ways for a kid now to break through and skip the line and go right into like, playing space or playing, or playing Tomorrowland.
Things that people literally spent their career trying to do.
Yeah, but I can't fault them for something that's not in their control. These are the things that they have at their disposal. Mm-hmm. So they didn't create, they didn't wake up going, oh, I'm gonna cheat life. They go, this is what I had. I have all these things. So instead of them putting their 10,000 hours learning how to make a song, they're putting 10,000 hours on their phone or in their platform or their TikTok and mastering that, knowing that way better than me. I don't care to learn that, but these kids do. So I can't devalue that. It's just their way of doing it, which is cool. But I'd rather spend my time making music and being creative than being a cinematographer or an editor or a funny man or having, I don't know how to do those things. I'm not shitting on those things. I have social media. I have Instagram. I have a TikTok. Do I spend time learning how to market it or use it? No. Is that a good thing? I feel okay about it. Does my management feel okay about it? Probably not. Do other people do? Do I have conversation where they're like, man, but these are your tools. You have to learn how to brand yourself. You're a brand. I'm not a brand. Sorry. I'm a man. I'm a human being that makes music because I want to. I didn't put my 10,000 hours in what I do to sell shirts. Or to when a painter paints, you're not thinking, I'm doing this so I can give this away for free so I can sell merch. People are like, oh, but music now, you should just give it away. Okay, I understand something in that, but I didn't, like, let's say you went, you're a composer, you went to school, you went to college, you learn how to be, the next Beethoven, or you're Daft. Like, you didn't put all this work into your art if you could just give it away because you can make money. What if you don't want to tour? What if there's an artist that doesn't want to tour? You just don't. You just want to stay home. Don't you have a right to earn a living off what you created, just music alone?
I absolutely believe
you have a right to that. So you're gonna say, oh, because you don't want to tour, you don't have the right to earn or make money because you have to sell a shirt. You have all these other ways of making income. But you have to give your music away. So if I'm a barber, I cut hair. Now I have to, cut people's hair for free because I have a line of gel that I created, but I just want to sell my gel. But I'll give everyone a haircut for free. So it's kind of twisted to say that. And it's not archaic. I'll say it right to the camera. It's not archaic to feel this because people should live off their art. If a plumber could make a living, okay, or, and I'm not degrading plumbers. I mean, plumbers, it's a great profession. But if a plumber can make a living, or anyone can make a living today, a musician should be able to as well, from what they want to do. You can't force them to do something that's out of their character. Like, oh man, you give music away. You can sell shirts, bro. Like, you're on tour, man. Like, you could do this, you could do that. You could, monetize your content. Okay. So listen, that's all good. And there's people out there killing it, better than me. Making millions, fantastic. But I don't do this just for the money. I wish I did, because if I did, I'd be a lot richer. But I'm not. But that's still okay, because my path in life is my path, and I'm doing it for the reasons that I feel good about.
Your passion is the reason, like, I got into learning more about this because music really impacts me, and like to see artists like as passionate as you, it's just like really inspiring.
Yeah, you know, I had this discussion before, and somebody was like, "Oh, you don't want to put in the work. That's why you don't want to put in the work on the TikTok or the app." I'm like, it's not about that. I'd rather spend all my time, blood, sweat, and tears, in the studio making music where I feel at home and I feel like I'm doing a purpose. Then, you know, figuring out how to, you know, figure out the new algorithm this week for Instagram so I can break the algorithm. That's not why that's not what I do, why I do what I do. So people can say that, "Oh, you're just being lazy." How am I being lazy? I'm putting in overtime on my art. Just because I don't want to, you know, learn Snapchat doesn't make me fucking lazy. I'd rather, you know, I'd rather watch a documentary on like, you know, on something that's gonna feed my brain and my soul and inspire me to make better art. Learning TikTok is not gonna, you know, make me turn around and make good music.
I think that's the point right there. Learning these things serve a purpose, but they're not going to make you more creative.
No.
They're not going to make you more of an artist.
You're absolutely, yeah, yes, they're not. You're gonna learn something for that few moments, and you're gonna learn it again because it's constantly changing, evolving. I'll look at it like this: how many times have you had to update an app? That's how many times the shit's changing. Every day it's like a new Instagram update. Every day. So think about that. They're updating this shit all the time because it's changing all the time, and every time it changes, oh, we got to learn. There's a new algorithm. What's it? I don't have the bandwidth. I'll be a user, but I'm not gonna, you know, get used.
Like Prince said.
Yeah, like Prince said. Yeah.
On the computer, don't let the computer use you.
100%. That is 100% true. Prince was ahead of his time. Like if you think about what he did when he put Slave on his face and he wanted to get his masters back, and he's talking to everybody about publishing. These are things like, you know, I'm happy that I can actually make, you know, open up my mailbox and get a publishing check or this and that, like because I put in the work and I've done things outside of just house music and work with different artists and different things that bring me that. So, you know, I get it. To each their own. Everybody has their method of creating art and growing and winning in this crazy field. You know, when I was getting into it, we didn't have DSPs like this. We didn't have, you know, all these streaming platforms, and music was less. It wasn't, you had to go to a record store and buy a record. You got an import, you know, there was only a certain amount of vinyls that would go around the world where people could play. Now you have, you know, I don't know, what, 100, 400,000 songs a day uploaded on Spotify alone. It's just nuts. So to break through that noise and get noticed today is really difficult, you know? And with that said, I commend these kids now that are trying really hard, because it is hard. So that, you know, that's why they have to have all these ways of getting noticed, because the music alone won't do it for them, because it's not up to par. I always say this, I'm like, if Daft Punk came out today, will people give a shit? You know, would they care? Would they give a fuck? You know, I don't think so. I don't care if they came out right now with Homework. People, I don't think they would care. It took them 10 years to become who they were. Homework came out in 1997. It wasn't until Coachella 2007 that people actually gave a fuck. It wasn't until that Pyramid show that people were like, wow, what is this? And then maybe they became who they became. But if Daft Punk came out today, would anyone care? You got marshmallow masks, you got this mask, you got that mask. I just saw on RA a girl look like a horse. Okay, cool. This is where we are.
You're the man.
Okay,
You're the fucking man. Last question that blew the Daft Punk thing scrambled my brain. I couldn't agree with that more. That's a really good question for people to think about. Last question, I'm gonna pivot a little bit away from that. Miami Music Week. It's changed over the years.
Yeah.
You've been coming since, when was your first Music Week?
95, I think. 94, 95. I first came to Miami with Armand. I think it was like 95 maybe, but yeah, Fontainebleau was still there. the conference was at the Fontainebleau. People would congregate at the pool, meet, bring their promos, but you have to buy a badge. We didn't buy a badge. We would hop the fence, and we would sneak in straight up, and then meet people, like, shake each other's hands and get records. And then you had a certain amount of parties. If you were a badge holder, you can get in here and get in there for free or for a discounted rate. And then you had certain clubs, Liquid, Backdoor and Bambi, Shadow Lounge, Groove Jet, where Danny Tenaglia used to play. Like, you had these iconic magic sessions at Liquid with Tony Humphries and Louis and Kenny and all that. You had these spots you would go to, Opium Garden, the Masters at Work parties, and you had this anticipation. There will always be a record that would break Miami, like the record of Miami. I was lucky enough in 1999 to have one of those. Be With You was one of the Miami records that was being played the whole Winter Music Conference. There was a lot more camaraderie. There was a lot more a sense of, like, it was a conference. It was topics to talk about. There was things that were growing, and then it's changed because over the course of Miami changing, Ultra came. Ultra was the first one. Was on the beach. I had the honor of playing Ultra a few times. They're great people. That's changed. It became the focus of what is now called Miami Music Week, because it's just music. There is no conference. That's gone. I believe the Ultra people bought WMC, so there is no form of dialogue. We can have this discussion should be in Miami Music Week. These things should be talked about. We should be talking about technology and music and content and everything that we just had. All this interaction should be, they should care about.
That's why I'm doing it.
Yeah. So that's the difference between then and now, where now it's just, let's pump money. It's no different than Art Basel. It's going through the same thing. I'm sure it started very artistic, and now now we got F1 coming to Miami. It's just money, 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 which is great for people that are making money, 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 money. But then there's, I think there's a need for feeding your soul with knowledge and education or music. That's why we come here. It's Miami Music Week now because it's just Ultra. They probably didn't want to call it Ultra Music Week, but that's what it is.
For somebody, for an artist still, or even as a two-part question, what makes Miami Music Week still worth it for artists and for somebody who's a music enthusiast?
I don't think it's a necessity for anyone to do. The same way there's no need. It's if you want now. There's no need for a Jupiter 8 in real life or a Roland 909 or any. It's a want. You want it. There's no need to come to Miami if you want to. And why should you? Be in the sun, be in a beautiful place, have some great food, be with your friends, listen to some great music, and maybe fill some content. But you don't need to come. I think there are different places. If you are a young musician trying to really network and do things, you go to ADE, Amsterdam, dance event in Amsterdam, Holland. That's a great thing to go to. Go to IMS in Ibiza. Go to Sonar. There's different places you can go to really get your musical fix, but also learn how the industry works and get in and understand your culture, because your culture is not just the music. There is a business to this, and there is a business. There is a music business, and it's constantly changing and evolving. But getting in and learning how it functions and how it works and who the players are is important. So that's a difference between Miami then and Miami now. It's just before it was a little bit more organized, a little bit more educational. Now it's just, let's throw some parties and who can we get on the bill, blah, 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 blah. Let's make some dough and buy, overpriced coffee.
That I spill in the car.
Excuse me.
No,
Yeah.
you're good. That's good insight. That is good insight. But for someone who's a music lover, right? Tourists traveling abroad, would you still say that there's some magic there for them to come to Miami?
I think so. I think it's magic at anything if you never did it. You'll discover the Miami it is today. So you won't know what it was before because you won't have a clue. So you're just going to enjoy the moment that you're in now. which is still fine. You know, I can't be like, well, it was better before. I mean, it's all relevant, right? So, yeah, I mean, will you enjoy yourself in Miami today in 2024? Absolutely, depending on what you want to get into. But
Go to your restaurant.
yeah, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of things for people to do in Miami and enjoy it. I've seen Miami change, and I love every incarnation of it, and I still love it today. Sorry, excuse me. As far as coming here, you know, would I live here? No, because I need a little cold, I need a little seasons, but I love it. I love Miami, and I think it's, you know, it's consistently Miami no matter what, no matter what, you know. I mean, you look at the city.
I know, it's not a bad view.
It's not a bad view, and you look at all these buildings, and just to think that half of the city was built on cocaine money is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's intense.
I'm like, it's when you watch Cocaine Hall, it's like, damn, this whole city was just like wild.
Funded.
Yeah, so it's there's so much history here, and it's wild when you really think about Miami and its incarnations of culture, whether it be, you know, we just spoke about like the Cocaine Cowboy Wars, or Miami Vice, or Bad Boys, or house music, or, you know, how can I, you know, their version of Freaknik was here, How Can I Be Down, or the hip hop conferences, and Art Basel, and now F1, and Food and Wine. Like, it's awesome. It's an evolution of it's an, you know, it's our little paradise in the United States of art, you know, and I want to preserve that, or people should preserve that. I'm not from here, so I'm not a Miamian, you know. I'm not an Estefan, you know, and I know them really well. Naib is a friend, and when I think about what they try to preserve here within the Latin culture, now the electronic music culture, and the food culture, and the art, I mean, shit, we can't just let capitalism destroy that and destroy the core of it, because if the heart goes from all these different things I just mentioned, like if the food becomes shit at the food and wine festival here, and all you care about is monetizing that shit, nobody's gonna come, because it's gonna be, you just lost the soul of it, you know, the essence of why you started it. So, you know, Miami's special because it has all these things, and people congregate here and enjoy it in the sun, you know. So I just hope that they preserve it, and I hope that, you know, future generations will still come to Miami, and it'll still be a Miami Music Week, but with a little bit more education involved, instead of just like, you know, fist pumping and ultra.
That's what we're trying to do. Dude,
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. This is awesome.
This is amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So yeah, you were mentioning, you know, you're swimming in Italy, and it reminded me of the film. It's right away, Deep Blue, which I love that film. I think it's a dude from The Professional, wasn't it?
Might be a little too deep for motherfuckers, but fuck it.
But anyway, and then it reminded me of going to Italy for the first times in my life. I've been there numerous times, Brindisi, up north. And my mom's family, my mom was born in Brazil, but her parents are from Naples. So I have Italian in my ancestry. So, but I remember going to Italy all the time and having a blast. And it was the first time, like, you know, my ego was, you know, which I've learned how to, you know, I think everyone should learn how to either dissolve or control their ego or dismantle it. It does no one any good. But this is me being younger and me going to Italy and having, you're number one, number one, number one. I was like, oh man, they love me here. Number one, everywhere I went, number one. I'm like, oh fuck, they love me so much. I was like, I'm like always coming back. Yes, my agent, book me Italy. They fucking love me. I'm number one over there. And then I would go back. I'll be with Dave Morales and, you know, be with him. He's playing. I'm about to go on after him, and I see all these people. Number one, David, number one. Somebody else, Frankie Nocoles, number one. I'm like, oh shit, everybody's number one here. Like, I am not special at all. So I learned. That was my first ego check. Like, right.
That is amazing. Fuck, everyone else is number one too. We're tied.
So that was my first ego check right there, the number one. My Italy number one.
Wow. That's amazing.
But touching on mental health, I think it's super important. As I got older, I realized how important it is. Because when you're young, you're just, you're impenetrable, you're just invincible, you're a superpower, you can keep going, nothing, it's hard. I see a lot more younger kids now. Like, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I didn't have that much of mental instability because it was just very tough. I didn't think about, I didn't have that. It's not that I was emotionally disconnected. I just didn't, shit didn't faze me how I see kids getting fazed now. So mental health is important. And I couldn't really talk about shit when I was a kid to people. Like, no, my lifestyle was a strange lifestyle of like traveling and playing and having these ups and downs and highs and lows and playing in front of a crowd and being alone in a hotel room, turning on the CNN so you don't feel alone in a strange country, not, speaking a language. Like it's a very lonely thing being an electronic music producer / DJ, especially if you're not touring with a tour manager and you don't have your entourage with you. It's a lonely thing. So you're dealing with that. You're kind of becoming this loner, and you're being trained that way. And then you come home, and then you have a balanced life. Like, let's say at that time, when coming home from Europe, it wasn't like house music was what it is today. So I would go, take out the trash, do this, and that. So you have this balance of like, I am somebody somewhere else and nobody at home. It's a weird thing to kind of process. But I understand more now of taking care of yourself and talking and having more. That's why I'm more of a talker now than I ever was before. Because I'm one conversation away from a solution. I do therapy. I do sometimes take psilocybin to help me in certain things in a medical way. I've done ayahuasca. I've grown, and those things have helped me grow. I'm not saying you should use to grow, but I consider those things medicine, and I don't abuse it, and I use those certain things to help me where I am mentally now. It's really important. I really do believe that, speaking to a therapist or having some sort of, some sort of time for yourself and your mental health is something that we need more and more and more because, there's a lot more going on in life that we are consumed with.
The influx is now much more. Do you want your coffee? I don't know if you still have it.
Yeah, that's right.
The influx, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time if you're chilling. The influx of information, like I think about my parents, right? First generation, my grandparents are Italian, so they came over. Yeah. And my parents were the first people born here. But like, my grandparents there was no time to be like, oh, this is hard, I'm hurting. It was just like, kind of how you're talking about. Yeah. Put your head down and like don't think about it.
Yeah, it's like our parents. Our parents didn't bitch, they just did.
Yeah.
And my mother raised, 6 of us a lot of the time by herself. And, in retrospect, now when I think about what my mom went through, it was crazy, it was tough. But she did it. She made it work, she made it happen. She wasn't bitching. Not to say that's how it should have been. Everyone needs some sort of mental health. I think mental health is really important. And I think now we're learning about it and being vulnerable. It's okay now. It's okay for a man to be a little bit more vulnerable or be in touch with a different side of him that is less, I hear Candace Owens was like, we need more men. We got men. We have tons of men. And we got men that have a little bit more vulnerability. I can understand my daughter more. Like me and my daughter have conversations where I'm not arguing with her, I'm talking to her.
That's amazing.
Stuff that my parents didn't do to me.
Same.
My parents didn't talk to me, they yelled at me. So I'm gonna break those cycles. I'm not here to raise my kids the way my parents raised me. There's fundamental things that are important that my mom did and that I will pass along, but there's a lot of fucked up shit that she did that was not right. And that's not gonna continue. So I break those cycles. And with my kids today, one of the cycles I broke automatically was my father wasn't even there. So, done, check one, complete, I'm there. So, we are growing and we are better, and mental health is important, and I'm glad that I've lived long, and I'm living long enough to see that our emotions are important, our mental health is important, and we're learning how to take care of it, and learning how to figure it out and how to take care of ourselves in that capacity, because we need to.
I couldn't agree more. Like psilocybin, ayahuasca, all these things are tools. They've helped me. Even LSD.
Yeah.
And in a therapeutic setting, I go to therapy. And men, it's okay for us to talk about our emotions. It's healthy because look at what happens when you don't. We have a massive amount of disease. We have a fatherless, in my opinion, nation of men who have been brought up by men who are emotionally dysregulated, not present. This idea of machismo or like machoism, which is like a complete front. You have the masculine and the feminine. We can like go into this for hours, but you have both. We all have both in us, and you need to. One should express both in a healthy way, and having a support system to do that, I think, allows us as artists, creative, as human beings, to like fully evolve and fully like self-actualize.
Yeah, and it's funny because my wife now, she works for the Motherhood Center of New York, which they focus on postpartum and women after they, give birth and all that. But they also now are focusing on men, because men, believe it or not, go through those things. Not the same as women, obviously, because a woman just gave birth, but men go through postpartum depression. They go through things that, while the woman is pregnant after, so it's interesting, and I'm glad that we're touching on this subject, because it needs to be more spoken about. And again, it's a subject that should be integrated in all different conferences and forums, whether it's an art or this should be touched on, because when you're in the arts, your mental health gets affected more, because you're out there, you're traveling, you're lonely, maybe you're dependent on, you're using some substances, maybe you're drinking too much, or maybe you're a sex addict or whatever. There's so many things that could be messing with your life, that is literally messing with your cerebral, that you need some sort of help. So I think a subject like this should be spoken. That's why we need conferences with dialogue. It's not just like, let's go meet. We need that, because you can still go party after, but you just had a great session of talking about something important that might help you.
It might help somebody else who's going through the same shit.
Exactly. So I think that's why we need stuff like this. And that we need to have a conference where there's still real subjects, real matters. Now, today is mental health and AI and DSPs and Spotify. Is it right? Should we get paid more? This and that. We need to talk about this shit, because if we don't talk about it, then it's never going to get fixed.
No, and it'll blow up in our faces, and it'll do the thing that's best for it, and it doesn't know what's best for us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Junior, for one, your vulnerability, two, taking the time out to speak with me, and just your authenticity.
Thank you, man. Thank you for this. This was awesome, bro.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
All right, man. Yes.
Might be a little bit too deep for motherfuckers, but fuck it.
No, I like that.